Welcome back to Roll for Adventure. Today we're looking at the game Paranoia. We're lucky enough to be joined by Gareth Ryder Hanrahan, the designer of Paranoia Troubleshooters, all the way from Ireland. Welcome to the show, Gareth.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
So, how did the 25th anniversary edition come about?
Well, obviously, impetus one was it was 25 years since the first edition of Paranoia, and we sort of went, we should probably mark that. Impetus two was, to be honest, nakedly commercial. Paranoia the core books have always sold very, 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 very well. Adventures and supplements, though, tend to sell considerably less. Normally you get a sort of a ratio of about 70% or so for the core book to supplement. With Paranoia, lots of people buy the core book. No one was buying adventures or supplements. So having more core books out there was a sound financial decision, which sounds horribly manipulative, but it's just a question that, Paranoia is a one-joke game, but it's a very, very funny joke. So we're looking for ways to repackage that joke. And Impetus 3 was that I had ideas for doing two other core books, the Internal Security and High Programmers, which go along with the Troubleshooters edition. And that was an excuse to get them done. So yeah, and we had the fantastic XP edition done by Alan Varney, and it was just a question of basically touching that up. Fixing is possibly a egotistical way of putting it, but sort of tweaking it slightly, which we'll get onto in a sec.
So how did you approach updating the systems of XP?
I've always felt that when you're doing the new edition of a game, it's very much a question of be a custodian of it as opposed to going to charge it and change it radically. That can work too, but with XP, I felt that it was a very, very solid edition to begin with, and we didn't want to make that many changes. So the big changes were basically tweaking the treason system. Alan had designed this lovely treason system based off the damage system, which was very elegant, very classy, very well suited for classic games, or for straight games, but it lacked the emotional joy of being able to go to a player, here is a treason point, and basically saying you have sinned against the computer, basically. Basically, treason points are fun, and that's even acknowledged in the XP text that it just feels something that feels right for basically the GM. You want to censor a player on the spot with a nice, simple, you are rap on the nose. The other thing I did was cut down on the emphasis on service firms. XP pushed Paranoia towards being more of a satire of capitalism than it was, and gave people jobs and sort of not realistic but sort of detailed approach to Alpha Complex. And in playing, we'd found that a lot of the service firm stuff, while funny, was distracting from the actual fun of the game. That basically the scenarios spending too much time talking about service firms and not enough time on actual missions, which are the sort of meat of the game. So we didn't take those out. We just sort of dropped the emphasis on them, and a lot of them got moved to the High Programmers book where they were a better fit.
What were your main design goals?
Basically, just keeping the game fun, which is a very sort of non-answer, but Paranoia is what's the best way to put this? Paranoia is an experience. It is not so much a game as a state of mind. It's all about getting the GM into a position where their giant hand can move inside the camera. Sorry, getting GM into a position where they can turn the players against each other and screw the players over, and the players are laughing about it and asking for more. So with my design goal was basically to streamline things as much as possible to maneuver GM and player into that mindset. So a lot of it was basically simplifying bits of the game that I felt were a bit overly complicated or irrelevant to that experience.
I liked how Troubleshooters was a standalone version as well. It's like, if you have one copy of Troubleshooters, that's all you need to play the game as well. Like no referencing previous editions and things like that.
Oh, I mean, as I said earlier, or possibly said before the interview, the joke is that Paranoia is a one-joke game, but it's a very, very funny joke, which feeds into the whole reason that people like just bought the core book and often didn't buy the supplements. It's an essential experience contained in one book. So yeah, we didn't want to get into referencing previous editions or anything. Although, of course, some of them don't exist.
So how would you sum up Paranoia for someone who's new to role-playing?
Paranoia is a game set in a utopian complex where everything is perfect, where everyone is happy all the time, where your friend, the computer, guides, encourages, nurtures you in your happy day-to-day life as a citizen. It's a post-scarcity utopian society where everything is just great. Almost everything. There are communists and muters and traitors and other horrible bad things, and they must be shot. As a troubleshooter, your job is to shoot them. This is a fun job, completely safe. If someone's used to role-playing, you lie to them when they're first playing Paranoia. You lure them in with promises of tea and cake and bouncy bubble beverage and happy fun teamwork. And then you hopefully have, say 5 grizzled bloody veterans of Paranoia who will tear them apart. And they'll learn. For new GMs of the game, Paranoia is a comedic role-playing game based on backstabbing in this decaying utopia, where the aim is to turn the players against each other in an entertaining fashion and basically make them dance for your amusement.
We saw a good tip for GMs somewhere online. It was like, for people who have never played Paranoia before, just say, I'm going to randomly roll and have one, I don't know if you've seen this before, but we're going to have one mutant and one like hidden alliance or something like that. I'm just going to roll randomly, but then I'm going to tell you separately outside, and then you walk each one out and say, unfortunately, bad luck of the dice, you both of these things. So you've got to keep this a secret that you're the mutant from everyone else, and just watch it fall apart.
Definitely. I mean, one mistake that gets made in a lot of Paranoia games is giving the players no reason to trust each other, no reason to not betray the rest of the party immediately. Basically, Paranoia isn't like everyone's out to get you. It's you suspect everyone's out to get you. There need to be situations where other players aren't always out to get you for the Paranoia to work. So basically, half the game is basically saying, if you don't work together in this scene, you will all die horribly. And the other half is, if you don't betray the other players, you'll all die horribly. And never letting the players be quite sure which is which.
Are there any aspects of the game you think could work better?
I mean, arguably the game is so barely there, given the rules are largely optional, and the mindset is perfect. Well, what they're doing in the next edition of Paranoia, the version that's Kickstarted there last year, is they're making it into a box set, which it's basically going to be sort of like you open the box, you got cards, you got card sheets. It's like straight into play. It's more sort of like almost not quite board game, but sort of like very very fast pick up and play version. I'm not sure if that's going to be necessarily better. It's going to be a different experience, and arguably a more popular experience because that's often how Paranoia is played. I think XP Troubleshooters went as far as you could with the idea of playing Paranoia as a campaign, going into detail on Alpha Complex, building out the world. And that's one way to play Paranoia. And for sort of purists and straight players, it is possibly the ideal way to play. But most people didn't play it that way. So I think having a game that will support that sort of quicker, more one-shotty style of play it'll work better for the people for the majority of casual Paranoia players. And for sort of the real purist players, their XP and Troubleshooters are still not that hard to get, I think.
It's just basically a new version that's more accessible for new people joining.
Exactly, yeah. It's the sort of not quite the same as having like the D&D starter set and your 3 big players handbook, DMG, Monster Manual, but it's the same sort of mindset. You've got like the quick, easy, slightly shallower version, and if you want to dig into it, you've got the older tome, purist tome with all like great columns of great text and detail.
If you could go back and change anything about Troubleshooters, would you?
I mean, every game, there are always like bits you would tweak, and if you ask me another day, I might go back and go right, like let's like not scrap XP, but like let's do a more more invasive surgery, rip more stuff out, push it closer to what I might think it should be. I mean, it's ask that question. I did XP. What was XP? 2009 was it or something?
Yeah, published on. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what 8 years ago at this point. No, what year is it? 6 years ago. 6 years ago, and I mean, I would say I'm a more sort of confident game designer at this point. I had a lot more, like 6 more years more experience, so I might be more willing to push changes. But there's nothing that sort of leaps out at me as going, this was a mistake. This is wrong.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, no. Maybe.
After one of our games, the suggestion came up that you could run this game with 2 GMs, one playing the computer and the other running the game. Do you think this would work well?
I think it could. I can't actually recall it having been done. Because the computer fulfills like multiple roles in Paranoia. It's a major part of the background, obviously enough. It's a tool for the GM to keep things on track and resolve disputes in the players. Like he's a traitor, he's a traitor, he's a traitor. Either they both shoot each other, or they both go to the computer and go, computer, Bob Orr is really a communist, and the computer like weighs the evidence, and the GM like blows up whoever is annoying him or her. And the computer can also often be sort of like a plot element, like the computer's giving you a mission, you need to get information out of the computer. If you give the computer over to someone else, are you envisioning them being more sort of like player-esque or GM assistant role? I suppose.
Yeah, GM, definitely GM, but like one just purely role plays the computer, and the other one actually runs, because it feels like there is a lot to do from the GM's point of view.
There is a lot to do. It depends on how much communication you'd have between them, and I think it could work either way, with either like basically that person acting as a second GM and just focusing on basically their interaction with the alpha complex, bureaucracy and power structures, and the other GM focusing on the like environment and the bad guy or the communist traitors. I think it'd be also very interesting to basically have the computer as a sort of out of control force of nature, not beholden to the GM or the players, and basically just throwing in whimsy and laser bolts as they wish. I think basically it would work, but you need to be careful that it doesn't disrupt the GM's plot. Or if it does disrupt the GM's plot, you're okay with that and you're willing to run with it.
Yeah, I guess we never even thought of it that way. It was sort of like a partnership of 2 GMs sort of co-GMing the game. But yeah, there could be that sort of against the actual referee of the game. Yeah, I've got to try that now.
I remember many, it's a complete tangent, but many years ago, I was running a vampire LARP, and I sort of set it up, and I got like 6 times more players than I thought I would. So I very hastily recruited 2 or 3 co-GMs to run it for me, or to help me run it. And at the end of the first session, we sort of have like a meeting after the game to go like, okay, well, what happened? What was decided? And like, GM 1 goes, oh yes, followed the notes you gave me, and I gave them this information, and this guy found this magic artifact, and blah, 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 and werewolves. GM 2, similar sort of like stayed on track. GM 3, oh yeah, I let one of the players invent cold fusion.
Whoops.
I was there going, what? And of course, the next week, the plots, the plots about like werewolves and magic artifacts and vampires were all being ignored because everyone's going, my God, there's like cold fusion in this chemical plant down the road, and this one vampire's in charge of it. Obviously, that's the main focus of the LARP. We must all go and like take that over, or yeah. So yeah, basically, if you're okay with basically two GMs, one of which has a hand grenade they can throw into the plot at any time, it should be fine.
Sure. Yeah. I'll definitely give this a try. I'll let you know how it goes.
I think so, yeah.
There are a lot of different skills for players to choose from, but a lot of them seem to be very specific to certain situations. Do you think the game could benefit from trimming down the skill list?
The reason the skills are so specific is to basically ensure the players don't have them when they need them. It's basically there to be horrible to the players. It's like, the GM can go, right, which of you has the warbot maintenance skill? And the players look at each other and go, no. Fine, who's going to default their crappy hardware skill? And six hands are tentatively raised. The skills are there absolutely just taunt the players with the feeling that, if only I had chosen differently, I would have exactly what I need, but I don't, so I've got to improvise, I've got to lie, I've got to get someone else to do it. You can also set up a situation where one player has a skill that's going to be very useful, like, you're being sent in to repair a damaged reactor, and one player has reactor maintenance. Now, the other players might all want to kill that character, but they're going, right, we have to keep him alive until he fixes the nuclear reactor. My secret society has ordered me to kill him. I've got this other plot that wants me to kill him, but I need to keep him alive just until he uses that skill. Once he rolls that dice, I can zap him in the back. So yeah, I mean, the skills aren't there to roll to complete things. They're there to add flavor and to taunt the players with possibilities that they'll never possess.
And cause no end of frustration.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, you can just run it with the 6 core skills, and that's often how the game will default to playing. But there is jokes more than anything else.
Do you think you could play with just using the 6 core skills?
Yeah, I mean, so you'll often basically default to that. I quite like the sort of Baroque thing of with the Italian players, you have 6 points in obscure chemical engineering, and then thinking, I might need that at some point, and also looking for ways to use that. But yeah, I mean, the game is sufficiently flexible and to the extent of being a crumpled up piece of paper that you can just use those 6 skills. Or even, I mean, have you ever seen Gregor Hutton's 316?
316? No, I haven't, no.
It's a sort of semi-parody version of, say, Star Trek Troopers, and you've got 2 skills, fighting ability and non-fighting ability. And
right.
You could run Paranoia perfectly well with either shooting and other stuff, or treasonous and non-treasonous even.
Yes, and just slim right down to that.
Yeah. I mean, the core skill of Paranoia isn't having the right skill. It's persuading the GM or the other players, or persuading the GM that your ridiculous plan will work, or better yet, persuading one of the other players to go first and get killed by whatever the challenge is.
Step over his liquidated body and then continue.
Exactly. Yeah. Build. If you want to cross a ravine in Paranoia, you fill it with the bodies of your dead teammates.
So as a GM, it sometimes seemed that each character had too many plot hooks for me to play off, with all different service groups, secret societies, mutant powers, bonus duties, etc. What would be your advice for new GMs dealing with this?
For secret missions, like secret society missions and hooks like that, the trick there is to have several players pointing at the same thing. So, for example, if the plot involves a portable computer core, then you have one player whose mission is to steal it, one player who's there to protect it, one player who's there to worship it as the small conveniently sized messiah. One player is there to destroy it. One player who's there to suck the data out of it and copy it over to a hacked core. Basically, you have all the secret societies point at the same thing, but in opposition. So they're all chasing over the football. And then as GM, you just need to remember, okay, there is this computer core. I need to drop that in every so often and have them chase after it. Because remember, as a GM, you can like write down or note all these different motivations. Whereas the players, it's going to be this confusing mass of strings pulling them in different directions, and they're not quite sure who's after what. What you want to avoid is basically giving the players lots of missions that don't interlink. Like if player one is ordered to collect every steal as many drugs as they can, and player two is supposed to leave secret messages in pipes. They're both sort of interesting things to do in a mission, or possibly interesting depending on what the mission is, and they'll both create nicely sort of suspicious behavior from the players, but they won't clash. They won't interact that much, or they won't automatically interact. To simplify things, basically have many missions point at the same plot element of the game. Mutant powers, I know we just leave up to the players because they'll find reasons to use them. And mandatory bonus duties like skills are really there to give the players a reason to point at other players to get them to do stuff. Like, you're the hygiene officer. Clearly, you are the one who should go in and clean up that nuclear waste spill inside the next room. I am really the equipment person, and I will fix the pipe once you've cleaned up the waste. but you should go first.
Where do you see Paranoia going in the future?
It is a very old game, and it's one of these games that, there's a strong argument to be made that Paranoia reached perfection in second edition, in that lovely box set, and has only ever been sort of orbiting around that since then. I'm not quite sure where Paranoia can go, or that needs to go. It's like asking where can Call of Cthulhu go? You could have interesting variants of Call of Cthulhu. You could have Delta Green or the Laundry or Cthulhu Invictus or something. But the core gameplay of you walk into a spooky house and find tentacles in 1920s Arkham hasn't really changed that much since Call of Cthulhu came out. And similarly, the essential Paranoia experience really hasn't changed that much and probably doesn't need to change. I've also heard it said, and I would tend to agree with it, that basically you can only work in Paranoia for so long before you go a bit mad. I feel like I've said most of what I would need to say through Paranoia's adventures and so forth. And I'm quite happy for other people to move on with the next edition. There's some argument that to be made for having Paranoia better reflect our world, and as we are moving towards a more paranoid state, that lots of the questions about computer surveillance and paranoia about traitors within us are arguably more relevant now than they were back when Paranoia was first made. Back then, the idea of computer surveillance was very much relevant science fiction. These days, with the war on terror and WikiLeaks and Snowden and so forth, you can drag Paranoia headlines straight out of the news and drop them into a game without anyone noticing. I'm not sure if you could do another version of Paranoia that would be vastly more relevant. I know the next edition is doing lots of stuff with augmented reality and gamification, which could be really interesting to see how that turns out. Yeah, it does. Where is the world going, and is it getting more paranoid? Yes, it is. I'm not sure you reflect that in the game.
Yeah, I think it keeps relevancy even decades later, and I'm sure you could pick it up in 2025, and we still sort of have the same issues that we're addressing.
Yeah, arguably, Paranoia is one of the few role-playing games that I would sort of stand up and say this is meaningful. This says something. This is not just about killing monsters. And since the Paranoia is also one of the few games that sort of crept out of gaming and infiltrated other media. Like you see references to Paranoia in the oddest places. And like it's become a sort of meme in its own right. It's a way, a sort of shorthand for talking about that experience.
So tell us your favourite story to come out of a Paranoia game.
I've been trying to think. I can remember there's one scenario which I wrote a while back. Again, this is like, Paranoia becoming more and more topical. I'm not sure if it got published. It's called, but it may have done. It's called Security Theatre 3000. And the gimmick is that Alpha Complex has just built this wonderful new high-tech airport. And in the briefing, you're told, welcome to the transport hub. It is designed to be absolutely, completely, utterly secure, cannot be penetrated by terrorists, 100% secure. Your mission is to test these security systems. Here is a bomb. And each of the player characters is given a fake bomb. And then they go to the car, leave the briefing room, and 2 minutes later, this guy runs down and goes, sorry, there's been a terrible mix-up. We actually gave you a real bomb. Here's a fake one. Let's swap the bombs now. And you just, all the players are going, we are like, we're mathematically screwed at this point. Because if they gave us fake bombs, you're giving us real bombs. If they give us real bombs, you're giving us fake bombs. It's very much heads you win, heads I win, tails you lose.
Okay, go.
And and it's all the players sort of, you can see their eyes going, yeah, we're screwed. And just find we're all going to die. And marching on bravely into the threshing machine of the security checkpoint. I also had tremendous fun in another game playing a scrub bot, which the players had programmed to basically like infiltrate and spy on this communist meeting, and it just becoming more and more deranged. So by the end, it was speaking like this, and it was going to scrub away the communists. Communists must be scrubbed away. And that was tremendously relaxing for me to play, actually, which says something.
Yeah, my guys were saying I played the computer a little too well, which was sort of a bit of a compliment, but also a bit jarring as well.
Indeed.
So what other projects are you working on at the moment?
For the last year or so, my big project has been the Dracula dossier for Pelgrane Press. That's an adventure supplement for Knights of Black Agents. The basic pitch, if you have time for it. Dracula, the novel, Knights of Black Agents is the game of spies versus vampires. It's like Jason Bourne versus Dracula, basically. And this is where we're putting the versus Dracula bit to the forefront. The central conceit is that the novel Dracula isn't actually a novel. It's an after-action report written by British intelligence in the wake of a failed attempt to recruit a vampire in 1894. They tried to recruit Dracula as a spy. It all went horribly wrong. They handed their notes to Bram Stoker to write up because he already did his brother's notes for the Turkish War. He writes it as a novel. They go, we can't use this as a report, but what we'll do is we'll edit it, take out key sections, and publish it as disinformation. They keep the original dossier. Then in 1940, when the Nazis are rolling towards Romania's and its oil fields, the British go, hang on, we need to stop them. Let's try something. What if we parachute a team into Romania, wake up Dracula again, and ask him to take over Romania? That goes horribly wrong. And one of the team members involved writes notes in the margin of his copy of the original Dracula. In 1977, there's a mole hunt. They suspect that basically Dracula still has agents working in England. They try and uncover them. They possibly succeed, possibly fail. There are more notes written in the margins. And then finally, in the present day, MI6 reactivates Dracula again to use him as a deniable weapon in the war on terror, hunting down Al-Qaeda. And more notes taken in the margins. And at the start of the game, you give your players this handout, which is basically the text of Dracula, plus additions, plus marginal notes. And you go, right, you are sent this leaked dossier. You know that basically this is the key to defeating Dracula. Off you go. And then the companion document is the director's handbook, Because basically each annotation in Unreacted Dracula has a number. That number points to a table in the handbook, and that table tells you which sections are write-up. So basically, if you follow an annotation that mentions, say, Castle Dracula, that will point you to the section in the handbook on the 9 versions of Castle Dracula we've written up, and the various things you might encounter there, and how to find it, and what you find there. And it's basically an improvised campaign that will go on for about a year, I'd say, of the players getting closer and closer to Dracula.
So is this something you're looking to publish soon, or?
It was kickstarted and it's coming out through Pelgrane Press. It should be going to print very, very soon.
Wow, that sounds like an awesome project, so we look forward to it.
It's been tremendous fun.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Gareth. We really appreciate it.
Not at all. It's been lovely. And stay alert, trust no one, and keep your laser handy.